Gus, I'd love to start off with what is a Renaissance man?
Renaissance man. Well, I first heard the term coined by Tony Robbins back probably about 15 years ago. Um, and then it made me fascinated what was a Renaissance man. And so if you look back at the Renaissance period, there was a resurgence of the arts of ancient Rome before it fell, in ancient Greece. And there was a big coming about of the old sciences and the old arts because we went through a huge period of the dark ages of human history where there wasn't much progress technologically, there wasn't much progress in the arts, and there wasn't much progress in the humanities. So a Renaissance man stands for the man that is modern, but at the same time sophisticated, but at the same time can philosophize, has kind of one foot grounded in the ancient Stoic philosophies and one foot into taking a hold of what modern wisdom brings to the table. So that's my interpretation anyway, is that being a Renaissance man means that it's like the three eye theory: one eye behind, one eye ahead, both eyes on the present moment.
I love that. I love that you took it with history, and the people who are listening that also love history are gonna spark on that one because I pride myself at always being a person that considers himself as you described, and I'm very thankful for learning and watching about different points of view in history and wisdom and philosophy at a young age and in university at times. But I feel like the examined life with combination of personal development with combination of being a truth seeker and a student of life is a very important trait of a Renaissance man because I think that there's a lot of men out there that have kind of fall victim into certain patterns of thinking and certain patterns of achieving. For example, a military man typically would be, you know, a military man that was also in combat and in the front lines. It says something about somebody to be a soldier and to be in that train of thinking. Like my man, one of my friends that I know, um, who is in a position of management, and it's almost like the old school kind of guy nowadays. And old school and new school is pretty has it, when people say they're old souls or they just do things old school, I'm seeing that in young guys, and I'm seeing some good things, and of course I'm seeing some bad things, the opposite examples of a Renaissance man. What would you say the opposite? Sometimes declaring the opposite can help you really see what a Renaissance man is. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I love those questions. And now, funny you asked that because it was exactly where my mind went after we brought this up. But so I'll give you some examples. You know, often what happens is when we're in reaction mode or when we're behind the eight ball in life and we don't clearly know what our highest priorities are and what we truly want, and it comes down to what you're saying. A truth seeker is the fundamental aspect of a truth seeker is to perceive accurately. That's why the three eye theory is so important. To perceive accurately is really to use your three eyes, your third eye up here, but your two other eyes, the past, the future, and the present. But we need all three perspectives to get a complete life of fulfillment, but also success, right? We need both needs met. We need the need of variety and spark, but also the need of our desires met and peace and tranquility. That being said, I'm coming to your question. This is fascinating, right? So when you're behind the eight ball, and this was me. I got home to a place and there were things that weren't where they needed to be. A air fryer didn't work that I was told about. The garden was a mess. There were a few things out of place. So what did I do? There were a few things I didn't like in the fridge and freezer. So I went out and spent about $1,000, got everything, only to find if I perceived accurately, actually the air fryer worked. It just didn't have the display light on properly. The garden wasn't so much of a problem. I just needed a bit of weed killer, and half of the food was all right, and half of the things, the blankets I could find if I just spent the time. But because I felt unsecured, I panicked, right? And I just threw a bunch of money at it, and the thing fixed. It worked. It's like if you got termites, you could bomb your house, it'll get rid of the termites, but also you might not have a house to live in, right? So the thing is, not every solution is going to meet the problem that's caused by it. And so here's the thing. Here's the classic modern day approach, right? You grow up and you don't perceive accurately what you truly desire. You think, man, I just want to be rich because if I've got money, I do everything. So what do? You double down on earning money. You don't realize that, but now you're trading 80 hours of the week for more and more money. And that extra money, that extra 100 grand in your bank's not making any more fulfillment in your life. But you're getting more stress now. You got less time, you got more stress. So what do? This person now is approaching 45, 50. He's getting heart disease. He's getting more stress. He's getting estranged relationships. He doesn't even know his kids. He's falling out with his wife. And now next thing he knows, he's facing a divorce, 55 years old, right? He goes, what have I done wrong? I've worked like a mofo. I've earned all this money. I've got now millions of dollars in the bank, but yet it doesn't mean anything. I'm out of shape. My relationships are all off the whack. My kids hate me. I'm now getting taken to the court. I'm getting cleaned out. Now I've got to find some other apartment, and I've been half the man I was. If only he had taken the time to perceive accurately, to invest in himself, to find the signs when his relationship was falling apart early, to find the signs when he was out of rhythm with his body early. So the best thing he could have done was what Jim Rohn said is do not invest more into your job, but invest more into yourself, because your investment in yourself will go on to pay you years into the future. Your investment in your job will only pay you for the day that you work on it. And that stayed with me for my whole life. So coming back to your question, what's the opposite? The opposite is to do what the society standard is, conformity, which is just keep spending money, keep making more money, and pray and hope that your problems go away. Over to you.
Woo! Oh man, you masterfully described the system, the cog in the wheel, getting played by the system, and getting to the end of your life, fat, broke, nearly dead. And I see it all around me. Someone literally in their mid-30s had some kind of heart, like a pre-heart attack or something. I don't know the medical term, but talks about how he could have died, talks about how he has to lose 30 pounds as he's chomping down a big old fat juicy burger with a Coke and French fries. He goes, this stuff's gonna kill me. And I'm like, I even walked up to him as he was on the phone and laughing. I'm like, man, like I want to help and I want to solicit all this advice, but a Renaissance man gets forged when you ask for help. And I think that's that humility of being a student. And then also whatever it takes for you to actually take action is what that person's missing. And you can't really give that to somebody unless they ask for it.
Definitely. So coming back to what we're talking about, the foundation, well, the principle to be a Renaissance man is to perceive accurately. And we know in Ignite, that's mission number one. Yeah. You know, if we're going to seek the number one purpose of all life, which is oneness within, oneness in what we do, and oneness with what we experience. The number one thing is to perceive accurately. And how do we do that? We use the 3I theory to perceive accurately. So everything's broken into threes, right? 3 forms of oneness, 3 forms of purpose, but 3 ways to perceive accurately. So often what people will do is they're so afraid to look at the past. They're so afraid of an unbearable feeling, or they get rhetoric right. It's in the past. Don't worry about it. And this is what blows my mind. I'm like, yeah, but unless you work out what you did wrong in the past, you're going to end up with the same problem next week. And so what they're not understanding is that the past leaves clues. And what most people do is, like like my example before, I got home and I freaked out. I thought, I'm just going to throw a bunch of money and just buy all this new stuff, feel good. It's like when you see rust on a machine, instead of trying to rebuild the whole machine, just find the rusty nut, find the rusty part that's causing the rust and replace that. But what we
Mm.
do is we want sweeping changes because we panic. We go, the whole thing's rusty. Now there's rust marks everywhere. So everything gets stained by association. But that's going to lead us to band-aid solutions down the track. It's going to lead us to wiping the rust away and hoping for the best because we never get to the correct cause of the problem. But yeah, you're exactly right. The Renaissance man starts with when we're willing to take accountability. And the thing that will drive us to want to perceive accurately, because most people want to receive blindly, right? It takes work to perceive accurately, right? But all the work of success is not done on the top. That's where most people think it's done. People think it's done through trying harder, copying other people, imitating those above. But it's all done below the surface. Because if you just imitate what's on the surface, you might not know what your direct cause, what's causing your problems are. That's why we have the system, the pyramid of alignment, is to find out, are your problems crude at a big level? Are they at a inspiration level, motivation level, or are they at a blueprint level? And unless you perceive accurately, you can't figure out where your problems are coming from.
Very well said. It's that perceiving app. Would you say perceiving accurately is also called like, doesn't fully describe it, but sharpening the axe, or as you were talking about, I love how you said it. You work harder on yourself than you do at your job. And what that really means is most people, and we used to say all these too in my presentations to recruit people. So it's the truth though, like most people plan a vacation than they do their whole life.
So true. So true.
Yes. And if you're the planner of a vacation, you know that takes some work. And so does your life, right? And what does that work look like? It's the hard conversation to live what you're saying. If you're not seeing your relationship well in advance, starting to go off the deep end, what do you do? Are you able to perceive accurately and adjust and learn and pivot? Great men have taught me to ask my wife, how do you feel about our relationship? How do you feel about me as a husband? And don't hold back. This is your chance, and ready to receive that. The more often you do that, the early on you can really catch things. What can I do better for the week? What do you need support with? This is what I have going on. And just constantly receiving and being vulnerable and doing that is one way to practically maintain your relationship.
Just
And
on that, I know
yeah,
you come to a question, but I just want to add this, and this is a real interesting point. Jack Canfield, this stayed with me. He wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. He had a great strategy with his wife. He would every week he'd go, okay, and they would have this with each other. How did I do out of 10 as a spouse? And then she would follow up, or he would follow up with, I was a 6 or a 7 or an 8, whatever. And then he'd always follow up with a follow-up question. Okay, if ever he got below a 10, he was always intrigued. Go, okay, what would have made it a 10? And that very question would help
wow.
perpetually improve their relationship. Unbelievably so, because it always had something positive and productive to work on, and they were always willing to feel the pain that you weren't perfect, feel the pain that you weren't good enough. But this is where it get exciting. They had the inspiration, the excitement to know, I can even make it better this week because he's given me the exact resources to know how I can improve myself amongst them. But anyway, I just thought I'd add that in. But keep going.
I already thought of something already with that. I'm going to use it for sure. I appreciate it. That's a good one. I like that a lot. And, with relationships, it's very important, and giving what you want. But to go back to perceiving accurately, it's sharpening the sword, or it's working hard on yourself, which is why intentional rest and reflection, and for my preference, psychedelic exploration can really help you perceive accurately, especially psychedelics. I don't know. I know that you've had some powerful experiences, and I don't know, maybe if it's because you had so many that you've decided to just integrate and, do what you can sober, because that is a practice, obviously, that should be the majority. Like 80-20 rule, I would say 80% sober, 20% cannabis, mushrooms, whatever you like, meditation. I don't know, like there's all these other, breath work is something I tried recently, which was pretty cool. There's altered states that have plant medicine to it, and obviously some with just natural ways to perceive accurately. And then just retreats, fasting. There's so many, but those are all ways to help us perceive accurately. And the question specifically is touching on that subject, but also where you're at with your psychedelic journey.
Yeah, right, great. Well, to address the first part, perceiving accurately, it really depends because it's a broad term, but you can look at it in the positive and the negative, right? So if you don't really have a proactive vision for your life, but you've got all these problems, right? Most people just throw band-aid solutions on the problems and hope they go away. Ah, I'm fat, I'm out of shape. Oh man, I'm gonna take these fat burners. They take them for a week. I'm gonna do the keto diet. I'm gonna go, and then it lasts for 2 weeks and they throw it away. So they just throw a bunch of things at it and hope for the best. But to perceive accurately, number one, if you just got a problem, is you're gonna find out the root of your problem. What is it you're really disgusted with? I'm disgusted with being too fat in the mirror. Well, if you just do a bunch of fasting and you do no resistance weight, you're going to get skinny fat. So it's not going to change the cause. So perceive accurately is to find out exactly what it is that's causing you the distress. So if it's fat, then you need a fat burning solution, not a weight reducing solution, right? But most people don't understand the nuance of what they truly want. So okay, so that's in the negative. We get a problem and then we don't perceive accurately. We just throw a top level solution on, or a surface level solution. So we have to perceive accurately exactly what disgusts us or exactly what upsets us. But then in the proactive aspect, to perceive accurately, we have to figure out what our highest priorities are. So that's the first step in perceiving accurately, right? What are your highest priorities? What truly lights you up? And then you've got to perceive accurately what's the blueprint for you. And then you've got to perceive accurately, does your life foundation allow you to pursue that? Or have you got other things that are taking you out of that? Right? So, and what you're talking about perceiving accurately with psychedelics, absolutely, that's another level of perceiving accurately in terms of maybe your spirituality, maybe life itself. But let's get to my journey with psychedelics. Yeah, so I've done mushrooms, LSD, brownies, um, ayahuasca, DMT. So I've had quite a number of different experiences. Um, where am I at the moment? I'm not opposed to it. However, I've done breath work, and I think my last experience with DMT sent me into a world which I hadn't probably earned the right to be in. It kind of, what it did was if you go through the breathing procedures, you can actually create DMT in your body. You can release it, and there's certain techniques, breathing techniques, you can do that. But the idea in yoga is you go through these steps and procedures, and you can naturally have these experiences that you kind of earned. And they also believe, the latest researchers say that endogenous DMT, which is DMT that's produced from your own system, versus exogenous, which is produced from the outside world, has a different experience in your body. So when you take exogenous DMT, you're more susceptible to more random things and more out of control experiences. Now, I took exogenous DMT injected right into my system, right? That catapulted me into a new reality, a reality that was so beautiful but so terrifying. I remember humans are driven more by pain than pleasure. It put me to a point where I could see how people can go insane on it. So I had to bring things back in because I realized how vulnerable it was making me in that stratosphere. So for me, it's not that I'm completely opposed to it. It's that I know the dangers of it, and I know that people can be really in danger if they take it the wrong way. So for me, I'm happy just really taking things bit by bit, and maybe I'll be getting into microdosing down the track because I've heard of microdosing with DMT and getting into more of these crazy experiences. But I'm happy to just go through breathing, go through my meditation, just enjoy that process for now. It's controllable because after my DMT experience, I mean, like I said, I can go into it, but it was the most beautiful thing I've experienced, but the most terrifying thing I've experienced. And I couldn't sleep properly for 3 months after. It was interfering with my sleep and my dreams and my nightmares and things of that nature. So you have to know what you're doing if you're going to mess with that stuff at that level.
Wow. Well, that's a good caution. I agree. I agree with that. I had a nightmare the other day, my first one in a long time. And feeling fear is something that I think men generally numb themselves to. They use softeners or toxic positivity when it comes to fear. Oh, and this reminds me of a story, and I have to share it. I'll keep names private, but person I know very closely that I had been, interacting with on a daily basis is moving back to their hometown because they've had a degenerative disease. Another buddy of mine thinks it's Parkinson's, but he's pretty much saying that he's near the end of his road. And he told me this earlier week that he's moving because he's going to be fighting for his life. And I said, wow, is it cancer? Is he going to be doing chemo? And he says, I wish I was fighting that. So it sounds like, and he looked defeated. I saw fear in his eyes. My heart broke for him. I was even on a microdose, so I cried. I waited till I got back to my desk and then cried. But I'd never seen a man talk about death and fear like that. And of course, what you're describing took you to realms that sound pretty severe, I would say. You know, for the people watching and listening, usually there's plant medicine ceremonies, ayahuasca, even mushrooms and several others have facilitators and shamans, and the right set and setting is really important. And it's up to you if you want to go into the details. I still remember every single thing you said about it that first night we met in Bali, because that's where you gave us most of the details. And I still have that recording, which is pretty great. And still getting views today. Slowly but surely, but that's going to live on forever. But yeah, I remember all those details and they're very vivid. And but traditionally speaking, mushrooms is pretty safe. Of course, you have to know the right set and setting, but we're not advocating for them. We're just saying that how impactful or how many Renaissance men do you feel psychedelics has created single-handedly?
Well, depending on how we define the Renaissance man, if you look online, it says the definition of the Renaissance man, the notion that humans should embrace all knowledge and develop themselves as fully as possible, right? So it's the dictionary definition. Um, I would say it's an interesting question because I believe that most people that end up doing psychedelics are already what Jordan Peterson would say have one of the big five quite extremely, which is their degree of openness. So everyone's on the spectrum when it comes to openness or being conservative. And I would say that most people that gravitate to drugs would probably already be open. Like, could you imagine Donald Trump doing DMT? It would be interesting. I just can't see people that aren't open as easily taking drugs like that. And perhaps if those people were, it would potentially make more Renaissance men. But I would say there will be a percentage there for sure. Maybe 10% of people that were kind of on the edge. There could be something out there. Probably took it and were like, wow. For the others, they were already probably quite creative, open types.
That makes complete sense. Yeah. I feel like I was very conservative, still kind of am in some areas because I don't have any tattoos and I've thought about them here and there. Do you have tattoos?
I do.
I didn't even know.
Well, mine's on my head, but
Is that the only one?
that's the only one. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's its own thread there about open-mindedness. Um, the idea of mind-altering substances is pretty scary, and it is you have to be open-minded because the fear is I'm gonna lose my mind. Like you said, I'm gonna go insane. And a lot of people who are afraid of their own mind don't get themselves to a point where they'll trust themselves. And in the worst case scenario situation, which I feel meditation and reading those kind of mindfulness books and practicing disidentifying yourself with yourself and being able to like watch the thinker is a really good prerequisite to handle paranoias and your deepest darkest fears, because in that kind of mind training, the highs and the lows is for me has been kind of like my spectrum barometer stick of how well I'm doing, is how deep I can feel and how sensitive I am to music and art and different things. And it ebbs and flows because I use my job as its own kind of art that doesn't have the whole range, but has some pieces to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
What do you think about the Renaissance man and art and work, their highest
Yeah.
priorities?
Yeah. So the question is around being a Renaissance man within your work.
Yeah, there's some common themes with people who are artists, people who are entrepreneurs, people who are creators. There's a certain bandwidth, there's a certain, I think that's where the frontiers of the mind is when it comes to art, the mind and spirit.
Yeah, definitely. So on that, what people do at the start, because we're born into a world where we need to survive, right? But not only survive physically, because as humans, as a baby, your survival is linked to your ability to conform or please the hand that feeds you, right? So what we do is we come with all when we're a baby, we come with no filter, with all our aspects being revealed, right? And so what happens is slowly over time we learn socially to shut down aspects of ourselves, right? Now this is called your shadow. This is this, and I love when I learned this, it just made it so simple because shadow work can seem quite mysterious, but in reality, it's anything you've learned that isn't acceptable socially or you've shut down in order to survive
Mm.
in the social world. So what does that look like? What are some examples of some shadow sides?
Great question. um I feel like some examples of the shadow side that I'm personally even facing is we were talking about this at the very beginning, before the podcast, was the myth of money and value outside of yourself, the myth of the rat race, or why men feel like they have to just make money to produce, following society, not really perceiving accurately. We got 10 minutes. So the example of a shadow is, well, for sure, not showing emotion in front of other men, not crying in front of other men, not actually expressing anger in a healthy way. Like any highs and lows, some other man next to you will say, "Hey man, it's gonna be better," or "Why you sad?" Like, I don't know, like they will project their discomfort and not knowing how to hold space onto someone else, which we've all been victim to. I don't like how this person's making me feel. Let's stop how they're feeling. Whether it be, I don't know, someone who irritated and is really annoying at you, or somebody that is angry, that can be uncomfortable to be around. So those are a lot of shadow suppressed emotions, I would say.
Right. Very good. Very good. So you bang on. So almost coming a full circle to the guy we described at the start having a heart attack at 55, right? And what happens is people end up, and this is where it's so important to do shadow work and you transition from leaving your parents before you cleave to your partner, before you have a family of your own. If you don't do the shadow work, then it gets pent up, it gets built up over a lifetime. And often you'll see guys with midlife crises, the shadows coming to rob them of what they've built up over their life because it's meaningless to them now because they haven't done the real work. Like Jim Rohn said, work harder on yourself than on your job. And those who don't do the shadow work, they don't work on themselves. It comes and it sabotages their success on the outside later, rendering it worthless and evering out the pain field. You see these guys paying thousands of dollars for counseling, thousands of dollars for therapy, thousands of dollars to try and band-aid solution their relationship when they should have just paid attention to the shadow side earlier. So examples of that would be not just crying, but could even be laughing. If you've been taught that your laugh is out of the blue or it's out of context or people don't want to hear it, they'll shut it down. Or if questioning, if you've learned that it's toxic to question something, you look dumb or stupid, that can be an example of a shadow side. Your curiosity can get suppressed. So anything that gets suppressed will get expressed later in life. It's whether you do that work consciously, which is conscious, deliberate control, or whether you do unconscious, undeliberate, reactive reaction that will cause your life to spiral out of control through, often your shadow side only comes out when you're drunk. When people are drunk, you see the real sides because they've repressed all this anger or repressed um, fear, and it comes out in violence or it comes out in uncontrolled laughter in all these ways when they have the inhibition removed. They often get an emotional release, but then it gets band-aided over again. So to do shadow work, to really do conscious, deliberative work on your inside and to allow that to come to the surface and to face it and then to understand that where it came from and be willing to do the work. So coming back to your question of it's really a luxury of sorts. It's knowing that you've got your life to a place of stability where you don't have to be in reactive mode. You don't have to be in survival mode. Because when you're in survival mode, you don't have a chance to allow the stuff from underneath. You're in survival mode. Literally, you're gritting your teeth, you're hanging on, you're earning the money, you're paying the bills to keep your head afloat, right? So once you've got your life secured, you've earned the right to do shadow work if you so choose.
Mm.
And that's when you can find the nuances of, hey, I had a reaction to that person. Why did I have that? If you're in survival mode, you won't have a chance to go, I reacted badly to that person. Why? Because you're going, no, I just need to earn this money. I need to pay these bills. You don't even have the mindset. But if you've earned the right to have a secured foundation with peace of mind, then you'll notice when something's not peaceful, you won't be confused of where the disease is coming from. The disease isn't coming from without at that point. It's coming from within. You can recognize it. You go, why did I almost fly for my partner like that? You can catch yourself before you do it when you're not in a reaction mode and you go, this is coming from because when I was a kid growing up, my mum used to control me, or I felt controlled by my mum. And she wouldn't let me go out when I wanted, and she would talk down to me, and she would never let my voice be expressed. That's why I'm having this reaction to my partner. Okay, let me go and express this. Let me do some shadow work now. Let me learn how to push back. Let me learn how to speak my piece now to my partner. Wow, that felt amazing. I did it and I didn't snap her head off. And the problem is, if you don't do that, it'll come out in a one pent up aggressive moment where you could ruin a relationship, you could ruin something, you could look stupid, all those things. But if you do it proactively, you can go, let me take a baby step here to express my inner truth, right? So you find the middle ground, not aggression, not suppression, but assertiveness. Over to you.
That's amazing. That's very well said. That was a gem for wisdom for people to reflect in their own lives. The ones that are listening are the ones that are, like you said, not in survival mode. They're not always constantly trying to listen and learn about how to make more dollar bills just for more dollar bills' sake.
To have less time on the clock to enjoy your life.
But if there's more reason and purpose behind the work that you do and every part of your life, even when it's time to rest, me and Violet, we are joking of this thing. Whenever I want to play like FIFA or Call of Duty or something on PlayStation, or just watch a movie, those two things we always say, we just want to be a degenerate right now. We
Love
just
that.
like if we're like after a party or something, after work, or just if it was a really long, tough day, we just don't want to do anything at all. And we don't feel bad about it and we just enjoy ourselves. And but we think it's funny too. We call ourselves a degenerate.
No, but you bring up a great point, and this is so important for people to understand. It's not about demonizing any one activity, right? Because there's a place for FIFA, there's a place for PlayStation, right? But again, it comes down to that one thing, perceiving accurately. If we just look at the behavior, we could demonize everything. It's like, oh, I ate a chocolate bar. Oh, I played on the PlayStation for 5 hours on Saturday. Oh, I got drunk here, right? All those might be fine if you look at the greater picture, right? But if you just go, man, all these are just distractions. Sometimes they can be distractions. We're distracting ourselves because we're not on point. We're not on our highest priority. Sometimes then we'll go through a season where our highest priority lights us up and we just feel almost every waking second with our highest priority. That's
Mm.
fine too. But sometimes you just need to freaking chill out, man. And that's fine also, right? So, but it comes down to know it's the principle of perceiving accurately. And humans love being dogmatic at the top, going, this is that, that's that. I'm either all or nothing. Nah, man. Once you've got control of your life, you can have nuance. You can dial up the seasons, like the scale of knowing whether you want to go on hyper focus mode, whether you want to go into flow state, or whether you want to go in chill mode. There's about 7 different states you can go into. It's not about living in one state forever. It's about having control of being in what state you want when. Now that's true level of mastery.
Oh, I love that. There's a term for what you were talking about too, hyper flow focus mode. Someone coined it as monk mode. They
Mm.
popularized how like they're on a big time dopamine fast and they're just on a straight productivity protocol. And it's hilarious. I love it. There's a lot of geeky and great nerds out there that make cool videos. And yeah, monk mode. But then also when you go on vacation and being on vacation, like you said it perfectly. Once you're in control of your life, you can start having nuance. I think I'm gonna write a little note to talk about that more next time because we're out of time.
Definitely. Well, I love the style of podcast today. We didn't have an agenda. We kind of flew with what came, but it was fun, man. A lot of fun.